So we're continuing on for this little week of commemoration of our book, Reflective Meditation, Cultivating Kindness and Curiosity in the Buddhist Company. So as part of the book, we chose to, as part of the appendix of the book, we chose to put a glossary of an unconventional glossary of Buddhist terms as one of the appendi. I'm not sure about that. Appendixes. Anyway, so a few words about the glossary just to give you a little background. It was an assignment for a creative nonfiction class I took quite a while ago. I really liked this class. And the teacher gave, we had sort of like a writing assignment to work on for the final class. And he gave us several ideas about how to organize our writing. And one of the ways he suggested we might do it is alphabetizing. And I became intrigued by this idea. Suddenly go, I could put together Dharmic terms and I could alphabetize them. But I couldn't quite stick exactly with that order. Really, alphabetizing as you're supposed to, really. I started to see other forms of order there. So I still did do the A's started B's, C's, like I did it that way. But within the A's, B's, etc., I didn't necessarily stick with the correct alphabetizing because I started to see other orders, like there was the Dharmic order in this section of the A's or the D's or the Z's. What was the most important word? And then I started to also feel this other order, which was like a kind of flow. How did I want the glossary to flow? So I may have confused people with that, but unconventional, I put it right up front in the title. Um, so fast forward several years later, we were asked to write the book. Um, and when we were asked to write the book by, well, actually, I think it was Whitton Higgins representing Tufari, the New Zealand publisher. It was suggested that this could be easy. We could just, transcribe several of our Dharma talks, and each could be a chapter of the book. Sounded pretty easy, huh? And after all, Whitton Higgins himself had done that, and he went with his writing of the book Revamp, and I thought it was an excellent book. But somehow we just couldn't do this. Um, it just felt dry when we tried to do it. We started out that way, but it didn't hang together. It just seemed dry. And I guess we really wanted to be doing something more creative, something more innovative. Um, Now, neither the glossary nor the book are written how it's commonly done or how maybe people expect it to be. Not in the order, not with the perspective, not in the writing style. But we think it does have some parallels to our life experience because the progression of our life, how things develop, can often seem out of order. Nonetheless, we need some order, so we order it somehow, some way that makes sense to us. And, the way I did that for the glossary was I did it somewhat alphabetical, but not really alphabetical, but kind of sort of alphabetical. Um, and many people read it, I even think, oh my God, she doesn't know how to alphabetize. She got this wrong. Um, but um, but not exactly. I carefully thought it through. Um, and we also created an order for the book. Rather than beginning with concepts, we actually left them for later on in the book, chapter 5. We started the book with more about how to meditate, more about reflective meditation, more about the basics, more about who we were, who the reader, anyway, many other things before we really got to those more conceptual teachings. So when we decided to add the glossary to the book, or maybe not when, but somewhere along the line, we decided we could add a new word. And we can add new words to the glossary whenever we want. After all, it's our glossary. And not, we added this new word You can add new words too, by the way. If you want to add them, you can imagine new glossary words. In fact, Linda and I now have a plan that starting on this Sunday, we're going to be adding a new word and speaking to it. Um, so again, this parallels our lives. Hopefully, new things arise, hopefully, with some regularity, because it keeps our lives feeling alive. And in fact, alive is that first word we added to the glossary. And here's the definition we gave it. Hopefully, you come alive when reading this book. If you become deadened, take a pause, put us down, or pour on some kindness and curiosity as a way to resuscitate. Writing the book was a very alive process, and for me, creativity is really the most alive thing I do in my life, I believe. I have to think that through some more, but that popped out of my mouth. Um, Now, I'm not saying aliveness is always feels good. In fact, a common strategy or a defense for feeling bad is deadening and so with all as with all of our psychological defenses, feeling kind of deadening or numbing, that would be a synonym. It actually can be useful sometimes, necessary sometimes, but it's really not a way to live a life. Maybe it's a way to pause for a bit. And it's not a way to learn the Dharma, though there will be times in learning the Dharma that it will be that way. There will be dormant times. It's not possible to always be learning, to always be growing, to always be awake and alert, which, by the way, was one definition in the dictionary for alive. I've heard from so many of you and so many meditators and from myself about dry, boring times in meditation. And that can be discouraging. Actually, it's a good thing to talk about when it happens. Just sometimes the very talking about it can wake it up a bit. But it is the nature of our existence. Things shift and change. We can't always be growing. We can't always feel the spark of aliveness. Um, so times our inner world and our life are alive. Other times they can feel quite deadened, and most of the time, everything in between. Though for most of us, when our meditation practice feels boring, duh, not alive, deadened, um, something happens and it comes back to life. Many different things could happen. Conditions change. Now, sometimes all this takes is patience. I make it sound like that's easy. It's not. Or time, which is kind of the same thing. Well, it's a way to be in the time, isn't it? To be patiently on time, in the time rather. And sometimes we can do things to enliven it. Many of us are going on retreat in a few weeks. That often livens things. But maybe you need to do the opposite. Actually, take time off. And that's what the glossary definition implies. There are things that we can do, that we have some choice about, and in terms of the glossary definition, how to read the book, but also expanding that out, how to be with our meditation or how to learn Dharma when things don't feel so alive. Now, of course, as we've been talking about in recent talks, we have choices, but not all the choices we wish we had. Not all the control we wish we had, but we do have some choices. Maybe our best choice, I don't know, in the moment when I was writing this, it seemed that way, is to remember anicca, that teaching that things are impermanent, that they will shift and change. And maybe a good choice is to stay our course, knowing what our course is then, whatever that might be under those conditions and at that time. So that's the end of the talk. So we'll sit with ourselves in meditation and we'll see what happens.